Welcome to Basic Graphic Tutorial for QuickSlope 5. In this tutorial, we are going to show you the tools available when you look at graphs. The graphic window is the default window for QuickSlope 5. To access it, you can also use the drop-down menu from Prisms and click on Graphs. To view the graphs, you can use the Graph toolbar on top here. So let us explore each of the options available. The first drop-down allows us to select the graph type. So let's, for example, select the slope distance and click on the button next to it to activate it. The next drop-down is for cluster selection. Selecting one cluster and clicking the button next to it allows us to graph all cluster prisms. Once we select a cluster, it automatically populates the following drop-down with a list of prisms within that particular cluster. And we can choose to plot the graph for only one prism by selecting the prism and clicking on the button next to it. If we want to iterate through all the prism graphs within the cluster, here's a very handy way of doing it. We first click on the main area of the graph and then use the up and down arrow keys on our keyboard. The prism graph will be displayed immediately. We can choose the scale of the y-axis for the graph by selecting minimum and maximum value here. For instance, let's choose a minimum of -20 and a maximum of 5. And we click on the button next to it to activate the changes. If you want to reset to default the values of the y-axis, you click on the Auto Calculate button here. Whenever we are plotting all the prisms within one cluster, it might be quite confusing. So if you want to view the details of one particular prism, we just hover over it and it will bring it to default. This allows us to clearly view the graph points, and we can also see the details, for example the prism name. And when we hover over a particular point, we can see the coordinates for it. To see the other graph, we just hover away from the line and we can select another one, like the red one, to bring it to the fore. Another handy tool to explore the graph is the zoom feature. We click on the button here and select part of the graph to zoom in. We can zoom in a number of times and we can use the scroll bar to move across the graph. Once we want to zoom out, we just click on the zoom button again to deselect it. There's a second toolbar for the graph called the Annotation toolbar. To make it available, you right-click on the graph, you select Toolbars and Annotation toolbar. The Annotation toolbar is very useful to draw shapes on the graph. We can also use it to insert text, balloons, and other objects into the graph. One very interesting feature is actually to make annotations. To do that, we click on one point on the graph and drag the cursor across it. To display the gradient of the line, we click on Yes when prompted. We can then drag the gradient label to the top of the graph to make it more visible. Finally, we wish to point out to you that there are two sets of context menu. We right-click away from the data to see the main context menu. However, if we hover over a particular point and right-click on it, we will see the point menu. This brings us to the end of this tutorial. Thank you very much for your attention, and we hope you enjoy using this very powerful application.